all, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the daily news analysis. So for today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from The Hindu and the Indian Express which are both important and relevant for the UPSC CST examination. Now, let us have a look at the topics one by one. The first article for the day has been picked up from page number 14 of The Hindu. US lawmakers to introduce a legislation in order to formalize strategy in the Indian Ocean region. So this particular article discusses about the US lawmakers having introduced a new legislation which is called as the Indian Ocean Strategic Review Act, and it actually is a piece of legislation which will enhance the geostrategic importance of US in the IOR, and along with this we'll also be discussing about what is this Indian Ocean region, how is it significant, the geopolitics that is actually revolving around this region, India's involvement in the region, what are the challenges associated, as well as way forward. The second article for the day has been picked up from page number 11 of The Hindu on the importance of regulatory sandboxes in artificial intelligence. So this particular article discusses about what are the benefits and the significance associated with regulatory sandboxes in the era of booming artificial intelligence, and we'll also be discussing about various innovative technologies that have been adopted by the governments around the globe in order to deal with the challenges as well as the potential threats and the risks that are posed by the artificial intelligence. The third article for the day has been picked up from page number 5 of The Hindu, that is the NISAR satellites can monitor the plate movements accurately. So this particular article discusses about what is this NISAR satellite, what are the specifications as well as the significance of the same. The next article for the day has been picked up from page number 12 of The Hindu. Pine needle power projects in order to check forest fires proves inadequate. So this particular article talks about the failed attempts of the Uttarakhand government in order to use vast quantities of flammable pine needles in order to generate electricity due to the lack of adequate technology. So in this particular article, we'll also be discussing about what are these pine trees, how is it actually significant, and what is this pine needle based fuel making technology. The final article for the day has been picked up from page number 6 of the Indian Express, that is solar flares behind auroras had been captured by Chandrayaan-2 orbiter. So this particular article actually talks about the recent striking of the solar storm or the geomagnetic storm that actually struck the earth, and this has actually resulted in the appearance of the auroras in the Ladakh region. So here we'll be discussing about what are solar flares and also the concept or the mechanism behind the formation of auroras. So now let's begin the discussion. The first article for the day is US lawmakers to introduce legislation in order to formalize a strategy for the IOR region, that is the Indian Ocean region. So this particular article will be discussing about the recently introduced piece of legislation by the US lawmakers, that is nothing but it is the Indian Ocean Strategic Review Act. And what is the significance of this particular act for the US and also for both the prelims as well as the mains point of view. We'll be discussing about what is this particular Indian Ocean region, what is the significance of this particular region, what is the role of India in this region, the geopolitics around the region, the challenges that India actually faces in this region, as well as way forward. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about the Indian Ocean region as it is an important part of the international relations, and we can map this particular topic to GS paper 2 of the mains examination, effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests. Okay. So moving forward, there have been repeated questions on international relations, one on the string of pearls in the year 2013, and in 2015 there was a question on Project Mosam, which is considered as a unique foreign policy. So in this regard, India's foreign policy, its relationship with that of its immediate neighbors, its extended neighbors, as well as the bilateral ties and the other organizations, or the intergovernmental organizations that are actually formed are very, very important for both your prelims and the mains examination. So moving forward, let us actually understand what this particular article is actually discussing about. Then moving on, we'll discuss about the significance of the Indian Ocean region. Okay. So here, the US lawmakers had introduced the Indian Ocean Strategic Review Act, which is very, very important. This piece of legislation that would enhance US strategic engagement with the IOR, that is the Indian Ocean region. And here let us understand what is the background of this particular legislation, that is what is the aim and objective of this legislation. So the legislation aims to prioritize and solidify the US's strategic approach towards the IOR region, okay? Because the Indian Ocean region is actually like the Indo-Pacific region, the IOR region is also gaining increasing significance in the changing geopolitics, okay? So India as well as the other developed countries like US, China, etc. are, totally focused on this particular region. So this particular legislation that has been introduced by the US, it underscores the growing significance of the IOR in the broader Indo-Pacific context and emphasizes the need for a structured as well as a strategic approach towards this particular vital maritime region, because it has a lot of straits, channels and choke points that are actually essential for maritime trade, as it actually hosts around 80% of the maritime trade, okay? So it has the Strait of, Hormuz, Bab el-Mandab, as well as, the Malacca Strait, etc. So now we'll actually understand what is this particular IOR region. So the IOR encompasses the Indian Ocean and its coastal states, which is actually stretching from the east coast of Africa, if you see over here in the map, towards or till the western coast of Australia. And it actually hosts 38 countries, and it has critical sea as well as the choke points. It has critical sea lanes such as the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Malacca, as well as Bab el-Mandab. And also, it happens to be one of the major hubs for international trade and energy flows, making it strategically a vital region, okay, for all the countries across the globe. Now, let us actually, understand what are the driving factors or the growing importance, of the Indian Ocean region, okay. So first, let us actually look at the economic significance of this region. As I already discussed, it handles around 80% of the global maritime oil trade. And also, over 60% of the world's maritime trade actually passes through this region. And apart from that, it is also rich in natural resources like, the hydrocarbons, fisheries, etc. And also minerals like the polymetallic nodules, that is the PMNs that is mentioned here. The next one is the strategic significance. It is home to major global choke points like the Strait of Hormuz, Malacca, etc. And it actually has a lot of significant military presence by the countries like USA, China, India, etc. And also, it plays a major role in the increasing geopolitical tensions as well as the strategic competition. Now, moving forward, let us understand what is the geopolitics that is actually surrounding this particular IOR and how it is significant for various countries across the globe, especially for that of our own, that is India, okay. First one is power dynamics in this region. The United States actually maintains a significant naval presence in order to ensure the freedom of navigation and security, with the US 5th Fleet operating out of Bahrain. And also, if you see China's BRI, that is the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as its String of Pearls strategy, aims to establish a network of Chinese military as well as commercial facilities in the regions like the Hambantota port of Sri Lanka. So you can actually see it over here, as well as the Gwadar in Pakistan. So these kind of ports, as well as the impact that will have on India's trade and economy, is very, very important for the exam. And India also has its SAGAR strategy, right? SAGAR stands for Security and Growth for All in the region. That is SAGAR policy. This emphasizes on a cooperative and inclusive approach, aiming to counter China's influence in this particular region. Moving forward, apart from the power, the power struggle that is actually happening here, there is regional alliances and partnerships that are actually associated with the countries which are located in this Indian Ocean region. First one is the Quad, that is Quadrilateral and Security Dialogue, that involves US, India, Japan as well as Australia. This partnership actually focuses on ensuring free, open as well as an inclusive Indo-Pacific, okay. So here the countries actually have joint naval exercises like the Malabar exercises. All these have strengthened this alliance. So these kind of exercises and fleet are very, very important for the examination. That is, it is a joint exercise between which of the two countries, whether it's a naval exercise or whether it's an Air Force exercise. All these are very important. Next one is IORA, that is nothing but Indian Ocean Rim Association. This particular association or regional alliance, it promotes the regional cooperation among the Indian Ocean region countries with the initiatives like the IORA Sustainable Development Program. And after that, the African nations as well as the small island states in the IOR actually seek to balance the relations that is actually there with major powers for economic and security benefits. For example, if you see the island nations of Seychelles as well as Mauritius have both signed agreements with India for developing of strategic infrastructure in this particular region. So apart from this, now moving on, we will be looking into what is India's approach towards IOR, okay? The first one is India's Sagar policy. So this particular policy was actually launched in the year 2015. It emphasizes on the security, the growth, the development and the cooperation in this particular IOR region. For example, India's humanitarian assistance and disaster relief HADR operations in Mozambique after the cyclone Idai is actually a significant example of how India is committed towards other regions or towards the other powers in this particular region. The next one is India's Act East policy. This enhances economic and strategic ties with the Southeast Asian nations like the Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, etc., such as India's partnership with the ASEAN for maritime security and trade. The next one is Project Mosam, on which you had a previous year question in the year 2015 or 18. And a cultural and an economic initiative it is. This actually aims at reconnecting and reinforcing kind of maritime links with the Indian Ocean littoral states, reminiscent of ancient maritime routes. Okay. The next one is the military presence. So here, Indian Navy's increased deployments in this region and exercise in this particular region, especially exercise Milan involving 30 navies. This is the best example for India's commitment or naval presence in the region. Next is development of strategic naval bases in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in order to, monitor any kind of security threats in the Malacca Strait. Next one is collaboration with the countries like the United States, that is the COMCASA agreement. COMCASA is what? It actually stands for Communications, Compatibility and Security Agreement. So this is the association with that of the US. With that of the France, that is reciprocal logistic support. And then we have association with Japan in the region, Australia for joint naval exercises as well as capacity building. And next one is the economic engagement that we'll see. One is the investment in port development and the connectivity projects with, other global powers over here, such as the Chabahar port in Iran. Okay, so this is actually seen in order to counter China's influence, where it actually has a Gwadar port in Pakistan. Next one, which provides India with an alternative route to Afghanistan. The next is engagement with other IORA states in order to enhance regional trade and economic cooperation. Example, India's active participation in IORA's Blue Economy Initiative in order to increase the, the fishery production, etc. Next one, what are the challenges that is actually faced by India in this particular Indian Ocean region is that first is there is a lot of geopolitical competition. Needless to say, we have challenges or the, threats that are actually posed by China. So growing Chinese presence through the Belt and Road Initiative and the strategic port developments like, Chinese has actually taken infrastructural development at regions of Djibouti as well as Hambantota in Sri Lanka. Next one, balancing relationship with global powers amidst the US-China rivalry is actually a significant challenge for a developing country like India. Next one, there are a lot of security threats. Now we'll be, hearing about a lot of piracy, that is actually happening in the region as well as maritime terrorism as well as smuggling of drugs, etc. So piracy and maritime terrorism near the Horn of Africa as well as the Malacca Strait is a significant challenge, and also illegal fishing is actually taking place and maritime environmental degradation. So moving forward, infrastructure and connectivity. What is the challenge with respect to this is that there is need for investment in the port as well as maritime infrastructure. So sufficient funds actually have to be provided, and also enhance the connectivity with the island nations and littoral states like Myanmar. And the last one is regional cooperation. So there has to be an ensured cooperation for India's Sagar vision among the IORA member states. And also we have to address political instability and governance issue in countries like Yemen in order to have a safe and secure and inclusive Indo-Pacific as well as the Indian Ocean region. Now, what can be the way forward? The first one can be we need to strengthen the maritime security. How? By enhancing the capabilities of the Indian Navy and the Coast Guard through modernization programs as well as acquisitions in this region. For example, induction of advanced submarines as well as the aircraft carriers in this region. Next one is we need to deepen our regional engagement with the IOR region. For example, the strategic partnership that India has with that of France, Australia as well as UAE apart from Quad, etc. Next one is economic and infrastructure development. As we already saw, India actually have to invest in the infrastructural development like ports, as it's already doing, like the one in Chabahar in Iran. So moving forward, environmental sustainability is one of the next important way forward. That is, collaborate on sustainable development as well as environmental protection initiatives. Example, participation in UN SDGs focused on marine conservation in this particular region. The next one, diplomatic and strategic partnership like the India-US exchange partnership through agreements like the COMCASA, the BECA, that is the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, etc. The next article that we'll be discussing about is on the importance of regulatory sandboxes in artificial intelligence. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about how AI, that is artificial intelligence, has actually found its way in different sectors, okay? That is, be it content development till the education, then health, finance, transportation, etc. We actually feel that there has been a boom or the increased presence of artificial intelligence. So, the governments across the world have actually necessitated the presence and have also emphasized the importance of the presence of regulatory sandboxes in order to address the risks or the challenges that are actually posed by the artificial intelligence, okay? So, in this particular article, we'll be discussing about what are these regulatory sandboxes and how is actually artificial intelligence actually finding its way into different sectors as well as India, and how it actually regulates the artificial intelligence, okay? And this particular or this entire topic can be mapped to mains GS paper 3 under science and technology developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. So moving forward, there is actually a previous year question that has been asked in 2020, and also the same year there was a question in the prelims examination on the applications of artificial intelligence. So here, the mains question actually reads, the emergence of the fourth industrial revolution, that is the digital revolution, has initiated e-governance as an integral part of the government. So here, digitalization, artificial intelligence and AI in different segments of the society, starting from governance, education, research, space, etc. is actually very, very important for your mains examination, okay? What this particular article is discussing about, it basically talks about the role of AI regulatory sandboxes as an innovative approach adopted by the governments in order to balance the threats or the increasing boon of the artificial intelligence and the ethical concerns that are actually surrounding it. And it also examines India's multifaceted approach towards regulating artificial intelligence, okay? So here, it is important to know, as I discussed, that as AI technologies have actually boomed and their applications actually continue to proliferate in industries like healthcare, transportation, finance, and more, concerns have emerged regarding the ethical implications, then the privacy of the data, as well as the potential risks associated with that of that development. And in response, many governments have actually come up with the idea of AI regulatory sandboxes in order to strike a balance between AI as well as how it can be responsibly developed, okay, and how it can be sustainable as well. So moving forward, let us understand what are these regulatory sandboxes. It is very simple. These are nothing but just controlled environments where innovations can be tested within a defined time frame under regulatory oversight. And they actually provide a platform, a common platform for the policymakers in order to gather different kind of evidences, the empirical data, etc. on the benefits and risks of new technologies that can be involved in the future. And also, it is an evidence-based approach that actually helps in creating or crafting informed legal as well as policy responses that promote beneficial innovation. And businesses participating in these sandboxes benefit from reduced information imbalances, lower regulatory costs, as well as increased access to the funding, because there is a lot of transparency and the cost is actually less. They actually they have access to more funds, because since the ideas are very, very transparent and they are actually shared between the investors and other stakeholders, investors actually given more money for your businesses. And also, regulatory sandboxes thus serve as a catalyst for the innovation, economic growth, as well as responsible governance. Moving forward, let us actually look at the benefits of regulatory sandbox. First one is controlled experimentation. That is, these actually offer a structured setting for businesses in order to experiment with the AI technologies. Example is the Financial Conduct Authority In the UK, this has actually initiated the first ever formal regulatory sandbox, allowing the fintech companies in order to test their innovations under regulatory oversight. And similarly, if you see collaboration, for example, the Reserve Bank of India has launched regulatory sandbox in order to foster innovation in the financial sector, facilitating dialogue and collaboration between fintech firms as well as regulatory bodies. Moving forward, we will see some of the stats on, how are the regulatory sandboxes actually functioning across the globe. According to the recent data by the World Bank, as of November 2020, there were approximately around 73 regulatory sandboxes, both announced as well as operational within the financial sector itself across 56 jurisdictions across the globe. And one such is in India, if you see, all financial sector regulators, including the RBI, the SEBI, the Insurance Regulatory, as well as the Development Authority. Then you have the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority and International Financial Services Center Authority have all launched their respective regulatory sandboxes, where you actually test a lot of innovations on how to implement or to keep your, monetary functioning under control. And beyond finance, if you see, Karnataka has enacted the Karnataka Innovation Authority Act of 2020, establishing an innovation authority dedicated to promote and regulating innovative technologies through a regulatory sandbox model. Next one, if you see, for example, we have the Telecommunication Act that was actually passed in 2023. This also proposed a regulatory sandbox where the central government has the authority to establish one or more regulatory sandboxes as prescribed. Okay, this is actually to promote and facilitate innovation and technological development. So, at the end of the day, in order to test the innovation as well as any kind of technological advancements, we actually need such regulatory sandboxes. And such examples, we've seen example RBI, SEBI, as well as IRDA, etc. have actually done it. Now, looking at the benefits, we actually saw the first benefit, because there is collaboration and all those things between various stakeholders. There is transparency, etc. Next one is disclosure requirements. Okay, here participants must disclose information about the AI models over there. Whoever is actually planning for a regulatory framework, they have to disclose their information about the AI model. For example, we have Article 53 of the AI Act includes provisions for regulatory sandboxes that require participants in order to provide detailed information about the AI technology. So, this will ensure transparency. Next one, there are tailored regulations as per your, situations. Okay, for example, if you see, Spain's establishment of Spanish agencies for supervision of artificial intelligence. This exemplifies this particular approach, as the agency will oversee the implementation of the AI regulations and adapt them based on the insights that is actually gained from the experiments that are conducted here. Next one, there is risk assessment as well as the safeguards over here. For example, the Singapore's innovation-friendly approach, this actually includes regulatory sandboxes that require AI developers in order to implement the risk management measures that actually ensures that your artificial intelligence, applications are developed ethically. Next one is, this is what is the ethical development also. Like, for example, you have China's regulation of generative AI, for example. This involves sandbox environment where ethical considerations are a key focus that help you to shape AI development responsibly. Okay. And the next one is data-driven decisions. Since there is a lot of transparency, empirical data are collected, etc., and there are empirical evidence on the benefits and the risks that are associated with the particular technology, aiding policymakers actually makes them or allows them to take informed decisions. For example, UK's National AI Strategy, that includes regulatory sandboxes, gathers data to guide the policy development. Okay. And also there is balanced regulation. For example, the US White Paper on the, Artificial Intelligence Bill of Rights illustrates this by using the data from sandbox experiments in order to shape balanced as well as effective AI policies. And also, there are economic benefits such as there are reduced regulatory costs as well as enhanced funding access, because participation in the sandbox can increase business credibility as well as attractiveness to the funds by the investors. However, when there are a lot of benefits, there is always another side to the coin, right? So, there are the concerns associated with regulatory sandboxes. One is limited scope and scale, where there is controlled environment for limited time only and incomplete understanding of real world impacts. Okay. The second one is regulatory capture. There is risk of regulatory agencies being influenced by the industry. And the next one is there is a potential for biased regulation favoring innovation over the protection of consumers. The next one is ethical and privacy concerns that we already saw. Next one is unequal access. That is, not necessarily there has to be a parity. So there can be disparity also in access to the benefits for smaller startups as well as less developed regions in particular. And next one, inequalities in innovation opportunities. Now moving forward, what can be some of the way forward that the government can do is that first is empirical evidence for policy making should be there. That is, use the data from these sandboxes in order to inform and develop policies that support innovation. The next one is expansion across sectors. Here, broaden the application of regulatory sandboxes beyond finance to other sectors like telecommunications in order to allow safe experimentation with emerging technologies. Next one, support for economic growth and innovation, followed by global implementation and learning. And also, there has to be continuous adaptation and regulation where regularly updating these sandbox regulations in order to keep pace with the technological advancements. This will actually ensure that they remain relevant and effective throughout time. The next article that we'll be discussing about is NISAR satellite can monitor tectonic movements accurately. So this particular statement has been given by the ISRO chairman that the NISAR satellite can monitor the movement of the tectonic plates very, very accurately. So here, as a prelims fact, we'll be discussing about what are the characteristic features of the NISAR satellite as well as the specifications associated. Now, we'll be discussing about NISAR satellite and how it actually plays a significant role in monitoring the tectonic movement very accurately. And we can actually map it to GS paper 3, that is achievements of Indians in science and technology, indigenization of technology and developing new technology for the prelims examination. And with respect to mains, we can actually, map it to awareness in the field of space technology. So moving forward, there has been a previous year question in the year 2018 in the prelims examination where the question was on IRNSS, that is nothing but the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. So all the satellite systems across the globe, specifically with respect to that of India, and what is its coverage and how does it actually operate, all these are very, very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now let us actually see why this particular or what this particular article is actually discussing. Okay, so there are actually 3 key space projects for the ISRO in the upcoming years, and that actually include the satellite launch of this NISAR, that is the NISAR satellite launch. Then we have the space docking experiment, that is the SpaceX, and the Gaganyaan mission. Okay, that will be the manned mission. Now let us actually understand what is this particular NISAR mission is all about. So NISAR actually stands for NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar. That is, NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar is a joint Earth observing mission between NASA, that is the US Space Agency, as well as ISRO, that is the Space Agency of India. Here, the satellite is almost nearly complete and a launch readiness date will be determined by the end of October or November 2024, and it will be launched from the Satish Dhawan Space Center on India's southeastern coast. Moving forward, NISAR will actually have the capability of mapping the entire globe around in 14 to 15 days, providing frequent and detailed observation of the Earth's surface. So moving forward, we'll actually understand what is this, flagship partnership and what is the share of NASA as well as ISRO in, implementing this particular mission. So this flagship partnership would actually have major contributions from both the agencies, that is the NASA as well as ISRO. Here, NASA is responsible for providing the L-band SAR, that is the synthetic aperture radar payload system, in which ISRO actually supplied the S-band SAR. So L-band by NASA as well as S-band by the ISRO. And both these SAR, that is synthetic aperture radar systems, will make use of large, which is actually about 12-meter diameter reflector antenna. In addition to this, NASA will also be providing engineering payloads for the mission, including a payload data subsystem, a high-rate science downlink system, the GPS receivers, and a solid-state recorder. So here it is important to understand what is this L-band as well as S-band. So L-band and S-band are nothing but these are microwave bandwidth regions. and these are called L and S based on the frequency and the wavelengths. So moving forward, now let us actually understand here L band is nothing but it is characterized by a frequency of 1.25 gigahertz and a wavelength of 24 centimeters. Okay, that is this particular microwave bandwidth region actually is characterized by 1.25 gigahertz as well as a wavelength of 24 centimeters, whereas if you see the S band, it is 3.20 gigahertz of frequency and 9.3 centimeters of wavelength. So this is what is the L and the S band. Now let us actually quickly look at the characteristic features of this particular NISAR satellite and what are the benefits that are associated with the same. So the NISAR satellite can fully map the Earth twice a month because it actually can map the entire globe once in 14 to 15 days, as we saw. It is capable of monitoring the tectonic movements to exactly in centimeters, so that is actually such is the state of its accuracy. And it can measure water bodies, the vegetation cover as well as the snow cover and also the evolving landscape, what is going to be the change in the tectonics, the plate movements, the glaciers, etc. And it can ground penetrate to a certain depth. It actually provides full coverage of the Earth's surface water bodies as well as the greenery. And the other benefits actually include monitoring the climate change, agricultural changes, the rate of desertification as well as the continental movements as we actually discussed. And this actually offers vital data in order to enhance the management of natural disasters such as the earthquakes, tsunamis as well as the volcanic eruptions. And this information will facilitate quicker response times and more accurate assessments. So here if you actually see various NISAR benefits, that is the benefits associated with this particular satellite. It is actually associated with disaster management because it actually helps in early response to earthquake, tsunamis as well as the volcanic eruption. So therefore disaster management. Next one in agriculture because it actually helps to assess your green cover, then the water bodies or the water levels, etc. Then the climate change because it actually essentially gives us data about the glaciers, etc. Next one is infrastructure monitoring as well as earth science as it is associated with geology as well. So moving forward, the other things actually include the synthetic aperture radar satellite with the S-band and the L-band payloads that is it has. And then by combining two kinds of these synthetic aperture radars, it will offer the measurements of the evolving, Earth surface, like includes the changes in the ice sheets and the glaciers, the wetlands and the forest as well as the land around volcanoes and the earthquake faults. The next article that we'll be discussing about is pine needle power projects to check forest fires have proven to be inadequate. So this particular article talks about many failed attempts by the authorities of Uttarakhand who actually used vast quantities of flammable pine needles in order to generate electricity due to the lack of efficient as well as sufficient technology. Okay, so in this particular article, we'll be discussing about energy power generation, and this is a part of environmental conservation. We'll also look into how are pine needles actually utilized in order to, generate electricity or renewable energy. So here, this particular topic can be mapped to prelims as well as the mains examination as a part of GS paper 3, energy as well as environmental conservation. So moving forward, we already have a question that has been asked in the mains examination in 2020 with respect to that of the status of the forest resources of India and what are the resultant impact of these forests by climate change. Okay, so moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so the Uttarakhand Renewable Energy Development Agency, that is the UREDA, bioenergy projects actually aimed at utilizing abundant pine needles, that is flammable ones, in order to generate electricity, but they have been deemed unsuccessful as the officials have cited the lack of appropriate technology for their utilization. Okay, so for this we need to understand what are the pine trees. Okay, so pine trees are nothing but these are the coniferous trees belonging to the genus Pinus, which are known for the evergreen or the pointed needles as well as the cones that they are actually characterized by, and they are commonly found in regions with temperate climates and are important for timber and for other purposes also like resin and for aesthetic values. Okay, So moving forward, let us actually understand how are these pine trees associated with that of the forest fires, okay? The residue that actually, drops down in the form of pine needles from the trees, they are actually capable of causing, forest fires. And here, as such, annual forest fires are becoming more severe due to climate change, droughts, as well as accumulation of organic biomass like the pine needles. And here, if you see, the Supreme Court actually had reprimanded the state government, that is Uttarakhand state government, for forest fire management issues. So moving forward, let us understand how these pine needles are actually used for, the fuel making technology. So about pine needle based fuel making technology, the pine needle based fuel technology involves converting these pine needles, which are often considered as a waste material and a fire hazard in the forest, into a useful fuel source. And here we will actually see a brief overview of the process that is actually involved. Okay. The first one is the collection. So these pine needles are actually collected from the forest or the areas where they are found in abundance, and this process is often manual and it is actually labor intensive. So this is also one of the disadvantages. Okay. Then the next one is processing of these pine needles. So the collected pine needles are then processed in order to remove any kind of impurities that may be associated with it, like the dirt, the small rocks, as well as other debris which is present there. And this can involve cleaning, drying, shredding of the needles. And then what happens? The process of conversion actually takes place. So the processed pine needles, after this particular shredding, cleaning, drying, etc., can be converted into different forms of fuel such as the briquettes, the pellets, etc., using various other techniques, and these fuels can be used for heating as well as cooking purposes. So moving forward, if we see the benefits, the pine needle based fuel actually has several advantages. What are the advantages? It actually helps both in the management of the forest waste as well as reduces the risk of forest fires or the wildfires caused by the accumulation of the pine needles, and provides the renewable as well as eco-friendly fuel source. At the same time, it also has various challenges associated with it, like there are high cost of the collection process because it is manual, or it is labor intensive, and the processing is actually difficult because of the inefficient infrastructure and technology, the need for specialized equipment, and the need to ensure sustainable collection practices in order to avoid environmental damage. So overall, if you actually assess, the pine needle based fuel technology has the potential in order to provide the sustainable energy and eco-friendly alternative to the traditional fuels that are actually present. But further research and development in this particular area is essential in order to overcome the challenges and make it more economically and environmentally viable. The next article that we'll be discussing about is solar flares behind aurora were actually captured by Chandrayaan-2 orbiter Aditya L1, says ISRO. Okay. So this particular article discusses about the Earth being recently struck by solar flares, otherwise called as the geomagnetic storm, and this has actually, resulted in the appearance of auroras in the Ladakh region of India. So here we'll be discussing about what are solar flares and how does it actually result in the formation of these beautiful color combinations of aurora in the sky. So now we'll be discussing about what are solar flares, and also we'll be looking at Chandrayaan and Aditya L1 and ISRO. All these are actually important for the examination. In the UPSC syllabus, we can actually map it to GS paper 3, awareness in the fields of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, as well as biotechnology. Okay. So moving forward, there has been a question that is actually similar with respect to the production or the usage of the solar energy. Something on photovoltaics was actually asked in 2014. And similarly, all these processes like the solar flares, the coronal mass ejections, as well as the auroras, the geomagnetic storms, as well as the, mechanisms associated with their formation is very, very important for your prelims examination in specific. Okay. So now let us actually understand what this particular article is discussing about. So there have been recent observations by the Indian ground stations Aditya L1 spacecraft as well as Chandrayaan-2 orbiter that have actually captured the solar flares causing aurora lights, and also geomagnetic storms like the recent one that has actually struck the Earth results in vibrant display of colors named as the aurora. That is, in the north it's called as the aurora borealis, and towards the south it's called as the aurora australis, as well as This time there has been appearance of auroras in the Ladakh region, and it also, on the one side, it actually produces vibrant colors, but also on the other side, it is actually very catastrophic. That is, it can disrupt the communication as well as the GPS systems that have been installed. Next one, ISRO reports that India was less affected due to the timing of the storm and its lower latitude. So now let us actually understand what are the causes or what causes the solar flares. So solar flares are nothing but sudden and intense release of energy from the sun's surface, okay? And they emit or they burst out the radiation across the electromagnetic spectrum, including the X-rays as well as the ultraviolet light. And when these charged particles, which actually has primarily the electrons as well as the protons, are actually ejected from the sun during a solar flare, they travel through the space and eventually they actually reach the surface of the earth. And when these charged particles, that is the electrons and the protons, collide with the molecules in the earth's upper atmosphere, what happens? In the earth's upper atmosphere, there are molecules of oxygen, nitrogen, etc. So here there is transfer of energy by these particles to the molecules, okay, and this interaction actually causes the molecules to become excited, and this actually emits light, creating the beautiful and colorful phenomena of the aurora lights or the auroras, okay. So here now let us see what causes the solar flares or the ejection. So normally, the Earth's magnetic field actually acts as a shield, guiding these charged particles towards the polar regions where the auroras are typically observed. If you actually see over here, you can see Earth's magnetic field over here, which is actually acting as a shield, okay, or protecting the Earth's surface from the geomagnetic storm or the charged particles that are moving towards the surface of the Earth. However, what happens during intense geomagnetic storm, which can be triggered by the solar flares, the Earth's magnetic field can actually become little bit distorted or disturbed, or it can also become weakened. And this disturbance allows the charged particles to actually penetrate deeper into the Earth's atmosphere and reach the lower latitudes of the Earth, where they can actually cause disruptions or, to the technological systems like the communication satellites, the GPS networks, the different power grids, etc. Moving forward, there are actually classification of these solar flares, okay, based on the strength, such as the X class and the M, C as well as the B class, and the X class is actually the most intense one. And the recent flares were the M as well as the X class, that is one that actually happened right now, indicating significant solar activity. So now let us actually understand what is the impact of such solar flares on the communication as well as the GPS systems. So the recent geomagnetic storm is actually observed to be the strongest since the one in 2003 reached a maximum intensity of 9 on the geomagnetic storm index. And after that, while India actually experienced less severe impacts due to its lower latitude as well as the timing of this particular storm, disruptions were reported globally. That is, in other parts of the world, there were actually disruptions, okay, affecting communication as well as the GPS systems. And communication systems, including the radio communication as well as the satellite signals, can experience disruptions during such storms, okay. So these are some of the common impacts of the solar or the geomagnetic storms on communication as well as the global position systems. Now let us solve few prelims as well as the mains practice questions. So the first question actually reads, which of the following accurately describes the phenomena of aurora lights? This is nothing but they occur when charged particles from the solar flares collide with the Earth's magnetic field, emitting the light in the upper atmosphere. Since option B is correct, the answer will be option B. So moving forward, the next question is, consider the following statements regarding the NISAR satellite and its payload. So it can fully map the Earth twice a year. No, this is wrong. The S-band payload is supplied by NASA. This is wrong. While the L-band payload is supplied by ISRO. No, this is wrong. So NISAR's capabilities include monitoring and measuring the water bodies, vegetation and the snow cover accurately, but cannot monitor the tectonic movements. This is also wrong. So since all the three statements are actually wrong, here option D will be the right answer. Okay, so answer is option D. So moving forward, the third question reads, consider the following statements regarding the bioenergy projects using pine needles in Uttarakhand. The Uttarakhand Renewable Energy Development Agency, that is the UREDA, successfully implemented multiple bioenergy plants using pine needles for generating electricity. This is actually wrong, and pine needles can be considered a good source for generating electricity provided efficient technologies are there. This is actually correct. Since only, statement 2 is actually correct, the answer will be option B. So moving forward, the fourth question reads, with reference to India's satellite launch vehicles, consider the following statements. PSLV's launch satellites are useful for the Earth's resources monitoring, whereas DSLVs are designed mainly to launch communication satellites. Yes, this is correct. And satellites that are actually launched by PSLV appear to remain permanently fixed in the same position in the sky as viewed from a particular location on the Earth. This is actually wrong. Moving on, the GSLV Mark III is a 4-stage launch vehicle with the first and the third stages actually using the solid rocket motors and the second and the fourth stages using liquid rocket engines. So this is also wrong since only statement 1 is actually correct. So which of the statements given above is or are correct? Only one. So the answer will be option A. Moving forward, the fifth question actually reads, what is the purpose of regulatory sandbox? It is nothing but to provide a controlled environment for live testing of new products as well as the services. So since option B is correct, the answer will be option B. Now moving on, let us solve the mains practice question. The question reads, analyze the strategic significance of the Indian Ocean region in global geopolitics and evaluate India's policies and initiatives in order to enhance its influence in the region. So here, the approach to this particular question has been, differentiated, or it has been demarcated into 3 parts. That is the introduction, the body and the conclusion. In the introduction, we will broadly discuss or introduce the concept of the Indian Ocean region and how it actually acts as a pivotal area in shaping the global geopolitics due to both its strategic location as well as the economic significance. And in the body, we'll be discussing about its strategic importance, like it has, a lot of maritime choke points and straits as well as the channels. And also, we'll discuss about India's strategic initiatives in this region, like we need to outline some of the key policies of India like Sagar, then the Act East policy as well as Project Nosum, etc. Moving forward, we also have to discuss about the regional alliances as well as the diplomacy on how ASEAN is actually involved, how Quad is actually involved, etc. And also the aurora can be discussed here. And challenges and opportunities, we need to identify the challenges like, the geopolitical rivalry that exists, particularly with that of the China security threats, etc. And also, we need to conclude this particular answer in a balanced way where we need to summarize the importance of IOR to India's strategic interests and suggest the measures to enhance its influence in this particular region of the Indian Ocean region. Okay. So with this, we are actually done with our daily news analysis. So for regular updates, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.